The Pixel 9 Pro XL and the Tensor 4 are better than you think they are. And I want to talk about that in this video because a lot of people get wrapped around the axle with the Tensor 4. Yes, it's not as fast as the Snapdragon 8 Generation 3. Yeah, it's not as fast as the A17 Bionic you get in the iPhone 15 Pro series or even the A18 coming up in the iPhone 16. But there's something special about this chip. I mean, it's got over a 3 gigahertz processor. We know all that. And there's been improvements across the board from the previous generation Tensor. We got the new modem in here. We got the vapor chamber in the Pro Series models, and it runs cooler than ever, and it's still able to run everything as smooth and as efficiently as you would want it to. And I want to talk about intended purpose, right? What was the phone designed to do? And we don't question this when we look at cars, right? Whether you look at a BMW, a Mercedes, a Cadillac, we don't go, oh, well, they don't all have the exact same horsepower, so therefore it sucks, it has no value, right? We don't do that. You can have a sports car that has a V6 with a twin turbo, and it's going to do better than a V8. The V8's not necessarily the standard. You could have a mid-engine, you could have a all-wheel drive, you could have a Subaru WRX STI, fantastic car, phone. I had one of them before. I love that car. And there's a lot of different things that you look for. But what you want is across the board flagship performance, and you're going to get that in this phone. The only real caveat is when it comes to gaming. It still games really well, but it's not going to be as good as your S24 Ultra or your iPhone. They have the more powerful horsepower there. But when it comes to, people talk about these benchmarks all the time. And a benchmark, look, it's trying to push the phone to its extreme, all the way maxed out. Pretty much in 99.9% of the time that you ever use any of these phones, are you ever going to hit the max benchmarks on these things? That's not what they're designed for. That's just one test when you take a look at stuff. But what I was thinking about, and the whole basis of talking about this phone and this video, is I was looking at stuff in the iPhone. I just made a video the other day talking about how the new iPhone 16 is Apple's latest cash grab. Why? Well, because they're finally going to give us Apple Intelligence. Of course, they gave a name to AI. Apple names everything. They can't just call it AI. They got to call it Apple Intelligence, right? Well, the iPhone 16 will do it. The iPhone 15 Pro will do it, but the regular iPhone 15 won't. So if you've got an iPhone 15, you're going to be SOL. You're going to be out of luck. If you've got an iPhone 14 Pro Max, you're not going to get all those Apple Intelligence features because they don't have enough RAM. So we're going to say that the iPhone is an inferior phone because it doesn't have enough RAM? No, but you're going to be missing out on stuff that this phone can do. Because the Google Pixel phone, they are the pioneers in the Android world when it comes to all the major AI advancements and stuff that we're doing. Stuff that's underlying embedded with Android, stuff that's unique to the Pixel phones that you get. You've got the new Pixel Studio, you've got the Magic Eraser, you got the Magic Editor, you got the Video Boost, you've got enhanced zoom, you got all these different things. They're AI features, which, add me. You can even do that with the new phones. And that stuff's cool. And we're going to see what we get with Apple Intelligence. And we're going to see what we get with iOS 18 and the A18 processor. But when you take a look at the landscape, it's not just about the chip, right? Because the A17 chip is probably pretty good. Well, if you take a look at the A16, you can't do the Apple Intelligence stuff. So when you take a look at that, you go, okay, well, does that make it an inferior phone? No. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is still a very good phone. The iPhone 15 is still a very good phone. But if you've got an iPhone and you want to take advantage of that stuff, you're going to have to upgrade. So even though your phone may be supported and get operating system updates and security patches for years beyond that, Apple's going to leave you hanging out in the wind because you're not going to be able to take advantage of all that new stuff that's going to come along because they sandbagged their RAM for the longest time. Yeah, if you take a look at their flagship phones, even the last couple of years, they only had 6 gigabytes of RAM. We didn't get 8 gigs of RAM until we got the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. And that's why when we get iOS 18 in it's a week away, the iPhone 16 is coming out on the 9th of September, and we're going to see all these cool things. The new phones are going to have at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. Well, for the longest time, everybody was like, oh, well, the iPhone doesn't need it. The iPhone doesn't need it. Maybe that was true, but now it does need it, and those phones don't have it, even though they have higher top-end speed or they have a higher benchmark score. And when you take a look at what this is capable of doing, it can process 45 tokens per second when it comes to AI stuff. So when it comes to on-device AI, and then you have to look at other stuff. The Pixel phones are the only ones that have access to those Tensor servers to process the AI stuff which are unique to the Google algorithms and Google AI language models and stuff. So when you look at a phone, you have to look at what its intended purpose is. Like, why in the world has Google been avoiding using a Snapdragon chip? Like, they're not using the Snapdragon 8 Generation 3. By all accounts, most people think it's a better chip, and in many ways it is. They didn't have the Snapdragon 8 Generation 2, 8 Generation 1. We've had the Tensor 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they've gotten incrementally better, and they do what they're designed to do. They can optimize it. And that's what we waited for. That's why we wanted to have Google Silicon, although albeit it's manufactured by Samsung, they make the Tensor chip, but it's designed by Google. That's what's so special about this. You get the Tensor processing unit that's in here that's unique to these phones. You get the Tensor chip, which is unique to these phones. You get the access to the back-end servers and also the language models, the AI models, and all that stuff when it comes to these phones. So it's not just about the benchmarks. It's not. That's just one little thing. So if you take a look at what you can do with the Google Pixel camera, they take phenomenal photos. I just recorded some video the other day, and the sound in here sounded great. The video looked great. Like, they've made some significant improvements there. The gaming, it's a pretty good experience. You get great battery. The battery in here is finally where I think we need it to be, where we've wanted it to be for a long time. So if you like the Google Pixel phones, you like what they bring to the table, it's not just about the Snapdragon. That's one element. It's not just about AI. That's one element. But when you take a look at the holistic package, when you put a Snapdragon chip inside of a phone, whether it's a OnePlus or whether it's a Motorola or whether it's a Samsung phone, that is a cookie cutter processor, and then each software developer has to optimize for that chipset. And that's where you get the benefit. Everybody for years has been like, oh, well, the Apple, they make their own chip and they do their own software. So when you use that together, you get better experience. You can do more with less. So how come we say we can do more with less with an iPhone, but we don't say we can do more with less with a Pixel phone, when that's the whole business philosophy behind it? That's what they've been building towards. And then once we get to the Pixel 10 next year, it's going to be, the chip is going to be still designed by Google, but manufactured by TSMC, which makes the Snapdragon chips, which means we're going to get a better overall chip. Now, Samsung, they make chips, right? They make the Tensor chip on behalf of Google. They manufacture it, but it's to Google specifications. Samsung doesn't make the best chips. Like, everybody knows this. They don't make the best processors, and that's why Snapdragon, Qualcomm, they've moved all and shifted all their stuff away from Samsung, because once we got down to the 5 and 4 nanometer processors, they were having a hard time manufacturing the chip to Qualcomm specifications and making sure that they fell within certain tolerances so you got the best experience possible. So they migrated to TSMC, and that's where we're going to get with the Pixel 10. But I've been very, very happy with this so far. Battery life has been excellent. Standby battery time has been excellent. The AI stuff is top notch. I've been making stuff when it comes to the Pixel Studio in here, and you can make some cool stuff. My wife's like, hey, I want a background for my phone. I want something kind of with some pumpkins, maybe some hearts, a fall theme. I was like, here, let me give it a prompt. I said, create a cute fall image with pumpkins and Halloween decorations with some hearts and a fall theme. And it created this. And my wife's like, wow, that's really cool. And you can do that straight on the phone. So there's a lot of stuff you're going to see come out with iOS 18. Their Apple Intelligence is going to have cool stuff, the revised Siri. But when you take a look at what Android's been doing, you take a look at what Google's been doing with their own software, with their own custom chip they have Samsung make, and they can do more with less. Now, granted, it's not perfect in every area. I mean, shoot, I had a Toyota Supra before, and it was great, but I switched over to Corvette. I like the big V8, but that doesn't mean that one's not bad. If you take a look at a Lexus versus a Mercedes, they're not necessarily bad if one is like, oh, it's got 450 horsepower. This one's got 435 horsepower, right? But when you take a look at something like a Toyota Supra out of 2020, 335 horsepower, 0 to 60 in right about or just under 4 seconds. Well, you're not going to get that in a big V8 because they're so big, they're so heavy. So when you put a turbo on that inline 6 and it weighs half of what the other cars weigh, you're going to beat them. So it's not always about straight line speed. It's not always about horsepower. It's not always about your quarter mile time. And the same thing comes with the phones. Benchmarks is like saying, okay, what's the max RPMs? What's the max speed on this? And let's take it out on the track. You take it out on the track, like, I know people that get sports cars and never take them out on the track. And I know people, I don't run benchmark software on my phone. I don't care. Whenever you use it, I know I've got 3 gigahertz of available power. I know in the medium cores and the efficiency cores, they bumped the processing speeds up on those. So now we get a nice, smooth, fluid experience, great battery, vapor chamber, all these great things. We got the ultrasonic fingerprint scanner. We've got the AI intelligence stuff that Google does, Google Gemini, and all the Pixel stuff that we get, plus Android 15 is right around the corner. So I wanted to talk about this because it's a multifaceted approach. Like you don't go in, you look at a car, you don't go and you look at a house and just for one thing. It's like, okay, well, yeah, square feet's great. It's great if you have a 3,000 square foot house, but what if your 2,800 square foot house has a jacuzzi in it and a pool, and the 3,000 one doesn't because it takes up too much space on the lot, right? I know I'm throwing a lot of analogies and comparisons out there, but I get so many people, even still, it's like, oh, the Tensor's a crap chip. Oh, it's 3-year-old technology. Oh, it's the benchmarks are not as good as the Snapdragon 8 Generation 2. They don't need to be. They don't need to be at all. The important thing is, does it run like a flagship phone? Does it run the software and give you the functions and features it's designed to, which the hardware is wrapped around and designed to do? And we've expected that from the iPhones for a long time. It delivers. We've expected that for the Pixel phones, and I think now it finally does deliver. I think it's done a really good job. Yeah, there's some refinements it can do. Like the portraits, they still need to dial that in a little bit. Yeah, it's only got 128 gigabytes of storage. Yeah, it's a little more pricey than I'd like. I wish it was still $999 instead of $1099. Yeah, this phone is not perfect. None of the phones are perfect. Yeah, it would be great if it did have a little bit better benchmark score, but that's one thing. That's just one thing, and all of it. We all know that the Google Pixel phones, especially with their computational photography, have been industry leading for a long time. They're always up there in the top of the top. They even beat out Samsung. They're neck and neck with the iPhone every year. Every year they're neck and neck. So I mean, we've even seen what they can do with even cheaper cameras, right? Even with, if you know who MKBHD is, he does his blind camera comparison stuff, like the Pixel A series, the little $400 or $500 rinky-dink Pixel phones with their cheaper cameras. Because of the computational photography and AI that Google uses, most people think those images look better. So, it's half a dozen in one and 6 in the other hand, or whatever the phrase is. I don't know. I don't care that much. It's late. But I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to get some clarification out there, because so many people look at it, they listen to what people have to say, they see the comments like, oh, well, the benchmarks aren't the greatest. Like, benchmarks is one thing. Like, it is one thing out of like 10 things you look at a phone, and when you look at everything else that the phone brings to the table, the way it's designed, and then Google, they make Android, they make all these AI features, they have their own servers, they have their own large language models, they've got Gemini AI, Gemini Nano, all these things that they're doing, industry leading computational photography, and what they can do with their hardware. I think it stands on its own, and I think it makes it a very compelling phone when you look at the top end flagship phones that you have out now, which S24 Ultra, it's going to be competitive with the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, the OnePlus 12s in the world, all that stuff. It's a good phone. Anyway, I also have this UAG Pathfinder case on here. I have the Spigen Liquid Air, which I bought. UAG sent me this one. This is not a review. I'm not paid for this, but I like the way that it looks. I use the UAG Pathfinder exclusively on my iPhone SE for a couple of years, and I like them. I think it's good. It's got great drop protection, and everybody always asks me, what phone case are you using? And right now, this is the UAG Pathfinder case. But anyway, just some food for thought. I know this is not like a review. I've got my full review coming in a couple of days. I've been trying to get out and take pictures, but it's been raining nonstop. It's going to rain all this week, but my full review will be coming in the next couple of days, and I will talk more in depth about the camera, my experience with the battery life, which of course my battery life has been all day. It's good battery life. Probably the best battery life I've ever had in a Pixel phone, and it's definitely competitive with the other flagship guys out there. Talk about gaming performance, sound, like everything. I'll have my in-depth full review here very, very soon. But I was sitting around thinking about it, and I wanted to talk about that because we're running out of things for people to criticize. Like, there were so many things people were criticizing with the Pixel phones. Oh, the modem, the battery life, the heating, all those different things. And for the longest time, I said the 3 things they need to fix for me: battery, heat, and signal for the modem. We got the new modem, we got the vapor chamber in the Pro models, we got the better processors, more efficient this year, way better on battery life, way better on heat. So they fixed all the core things, And then they tossed in the ultrasonic fingerprint scanner. They gave us a new ultra wide. They gave us a new selfie camera, and I really like the new selfie camera, and it is top notch when it comes to not only photos, but it's really good with the video, and it's excellent when it comes to the sound stuff. So there's just so many nice things here. And then 7 years of support, right? 7 years operating system updates, 7 years security patches, Android 15 coming around in October, and we'll keep evaluating it. But that's all I got. Just wanted to talk about that stuff because everyone's like, oh, the iPhone's better. I'm like, well, there's stuff this one can do that the iPhone can't. And they're 2 years ahead, at least, in the AI department at this point. So Apple, even though they're coming out with Apple Intelligence, still has to play catch up. Like there's a lot of stuff they're going to have to polish and refine. There's going to be features that probably aren't going to be available. We've heard rumors that some of the major Apple Intelligence and Siri update stuff might not even be available till the spring. Like we'll have the S25 by then, right? So that's all I got in this video. Just something I wanted to talk about. But if you have any questions, comments, gripes, concerns, whatever, go to the comment section. We can talk about it. If you enjoyed the video, if you found this helpful, if you like the pixel stuff, you're in the right place. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching. And I'll see you guys next time.